Hello everyone, this is Darren here with Creativity Unleashed, and then today I just wanted to show you guys a $9 Harbor Freight spray gun. They sometimes put these on sale for $9, see them often for $10, $12. I've had this one for quite a few years, had a lot of other ones for many years. They work really well for certain applications, especially when you're just doing general painting of stuff. Right now we're doing a propane tank and using Rust-Oleum. I got some white Rust-Oleum, but I wanted gray and they didn't have the color I wanted, so I ended up just mixing a little black in with it. Alright, so I used gasoline as the dissolvent for it. They obviously have all kinds of thinners, but they tend to add up in cost a lot more than gasoline. Obviously gasoline has a little bit of oil in it, so it's not going to be quite to the same level of quality as using a proper paint thinner. But I've been doing this for many years and know a lot of people doing it for years and never had any issues with it. Obviously, careful not to have fire or sparks or anything since it is gasoline, but a lot of paint solvents are very flammable as well. So one of the things I like to do is on most paints you tend to add about 25% paint thinner or gasoline. Is once I add what I think is about right, I add a couple drops to the lid. What you're going to want to do is you want to see how it runs. My favorite is blowing on it. So when you blow on it, you see that it has a good coat, and you can't really see straight through it. So you know that it's coating well. Now if it's too thick, you'll be able to tell by how it runs. And if it's too thin, you'll be able to see like it's thin too much and you'll be able to see the metal underneath. And so this is just about right, I think. Sometimes when you start spraying, you'll adjust it just slightly. But we'll load this in the gun. Always use mesh filters, especially if the paint's a little bit older. I've had this paint sitting around for a few years. So yeah. Obviously respirators are a good idea, but I'm in a well ventilated area, so I'm going to just use a KN95 instead. But you probably should use a respirator. As always, the most important part to any painting project is the prep work. I power washed the tank thoroughly, and now I'm using an angle grinder with a flap disc to knock off any of the loose paint, as well as to prepare the surface so that the paint would adhere better. This is red oxide primer, which works really well to prevent rust. I found that out of all the primers I've used, red oxide works the best. I always find it helpful to put on nice thin coats so that I don't get any runs. You can allow the paint to start setting up a little bit and then spray it again, and that can work out really well. I also try to let up on the trigger on all the starts and stops so that it ensures that when I go to the next segment that it's blended really well. With the 4 thin coats of paint, it took almost a week for the paint to cure. At the end of this video, I'll show you guys the adjustments on the gun and what they do. On a few of the other spray guns I've had, I put literally hundreds of gallons of paint through them, painting shipping containers and trusses. Eventually what tends to happen when they do wear out is where the needle seals, like where it slides back and forth inside, they will get where they'll start leaking a little bit and dripping on your hand. And I haven't seen like seal replacement kits. If you had one, you could probably make these things last just about forever. I also love using these spray guns for staining decks and siding on wood buildings and stuff. Had great results using the stain through the gun. I had tried once spraying latex paint through the gun. Didn't seem to work well. The paint's too thick in my opinion for this gun. If your paint is thinned down too much, you will tend to get a lot of runs and it'll be very transparent, the paint. It'll take a long time to get enough coats on it to cover it well. If your paint is too thick, it often won't want to come out of the gun very well, or it'll have a dull look to it and it won't have a very smooth kind of wet look. Clean, dry air is also very important, as well as having the pressure set correctly. For a wide range of the things I paint, I found 36 psi to work well. Alright, real quickly let me show you guys the adjustments that are on the gun if you're not familiar with them. This here is the fan adjustment. If you have it all the way this way and closed, it'll just shoot a straight stream of paint like you'd often see on a lot of the rattle paint cans. If you open it up, it'll have a nice wide fan, and that way if you're painting something that's like a flat surface, often you'll use the more fanned out, and if you're just doing like tubing on something like a bicycle, you'd probably keep it closed mostly. You have right here the adjustment for how much paint it lets out while you're painting, so that can definitely control if you're getting runs or whatnot. If you're not as experienced, I'd recommend closing it more, just depending what you're doing. Also, this here is the air adjustment. You can shut the air off or open it, but I would recommend just leaving it open and using a regulator. But if you didn't have a regulator, this will work to a extent. I also recommend using one of these ball fittings for the air connection for the hose, simply because while you're painting, it allows you to have more mobility, and it constricts you less, and I think it fatigues you less. They're not much, a few bucks, and I find they work better. I upgraded to the metal hopper. A lot of times the ones it comes with, the lids are really hard to take on and off and tend to leak paint. But with these upgraded ones, there's no problem. But definitely you can use the normal ones. Make sure you keep the nozzles, the little holes, and all the orifices clean on these. You can use even a little wire from a wire brush. They sell, of course, kits to clean them, but whatever you have around. You can also take this off and clean it between jobs. You take this all the way off, there's a spring, the rod comes out, you can clean that, you can take this off. Often if I'm going to be working with it, and frequently I'll just leave thinner in the gun, and that tends to work pretty well, and make sure I have it at least emptied out of all the paint that comes off real quick. So there you go, it's pretty simple, and they're great little guns, especially for taking care of farm equipment or painting furniture, all that kind of stuff. If you're into automotive stuff, this probably could do the job, but with how expensive paint and supplies are, you might just want to use a higher quality piece of kit, but this definitely can do a good job for the price. I've had this one probably 4 years now.